Welcome. And my name is Tammy Lesso. I'm a coordinator in the Academic Affairs Office in the College of Engineering, and I'll be moderating today's panel on careers in the defense industry. So our panel discussion today is designed to highlight not only the careers of our panelists, but also to provide students with advice on launching their careers, provide perspective on the transition from college to career, as well as some insights into the industry. So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the staff members that are represented on the call today. And we have Holly Hernandez joining us today. Holly is Assistant Director of Employer Relations. Lisa Quasmanen is also with us. Lisa is a career education specialist, as well as Christy Embrecht-Seals, who is Marketing and Events Coordinator. All of these staff members are from the Center for Career and Experiential Education, excuse me. And additionally, we will be taking questions from the students. So please, if you have any questions for our panelists, please enter the questions into the chat feature on the Zoom. At any point in time, feel free to add a question. What we'll do is at the end of the program is we'll take the questions and we'll ask our panelists directly, and we'll have a little Q&A session at the end of the program. So let's get started. Very excited for this first panel. We have with us today Bryce Monahan. Bryce is a mechanical engineer supervisor at General Dynamics Electric Boat. We also have Dorothy Rasko. Dorothy is Director of Engineering at Ball Aerospace. And I think we might have on the phone, or soon to be on the phone, Susan Borden, Vice President of Human Resources at Rite Solutions. So welcome, panelists. We're very excited to have you here today. What we're going to do is we're going to ask you some questions and ask the panelists some questions. We'll go through some of these questions with the panelists. And but what I would love to do is I would love to have each of our panelists to start off the conversation by providing a little bit of information about yourself. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, include obviously where you're currently employed, also a brief overview of your career and your current role. That would be great for our students to kind of get a perspective of where you are in your engineering career or in the industry. So also, if you have an affiliation with URI, feel free to mention that as well. So let's start with the introductions. We'll have Dorothy Rasko from Ball Aerospace start.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome. My name is Dorothy Rasko. I'm really excited to be here. I'm the Director of Engineering Operations at Ball Aerospace out of Boulder, Colorado. So I graduated from the University of Rhode Island many years ago in civil and environmental engineering. And my career has taken a lot of turns from when I graduated. So I actually retired from NASA Johnson Space Center after 31 years at NASA. One of my many jobs there or positions was I worked 44 shuttle program missions, and my last mission was shutting down the shuttle program and bringing the orbiters to the different museums. And then I became the Deputy Associate Administrator for Space Technology. So we were developing the different technologies to go beyond low Earth orbit. It's really for exploration to Mars. And then I have a lot of business background. Just before I retired, I became the Chief Financial Officer for the Johnson Space Center. And my boss, that was the Associate Administrator for Space Technology, became the Vice President of Engineering for Ball Aerospace. And he asked if I would come and work for him, working on, the company has grown from, when I started there, 2,000 people to over 5,000. We've hired over 1,000 engineers in the last 3 years. So the company was really very ad hoc, organic. Everyone worked very hard to get the job done. But now that I've been there, good, bad, or indifferent, I've brought structure, processes, policies for scaling because of the size of the company. The company is 70% Department of Defense and Intelligence and about 30% of NASA NOAA work. And so I tell different students when I talk to them, all of the instruments and the telescopes and the different components that we look up into the universe for space exploration, we utilize the same development and technology for looking down to bring back our warriors and our soldiers and helping with the intelligence using similar technology. And so I'm really super excited to meet you all. And I am on the advisory council at the University of Rhode Island. I love Rhode Island. I miss it. I go back every summer. And I hope you love URI as much as I did, both my experience and the great education that I got. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tammy.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. What an amazing background. We can't wait to dig a little bit deeper into that. And I just want to make a note too that the university just announced that they're offering face-to-face tours for prospective families again this month. So if you want to come back to campus, we'd love to have you. So our next panelist is Bryce Monahan. Once again, Bryce is with General Dynamics Electric Boat. Bryce, why don't you give us a little bit of that background that you have as well, and talk a little bit about what you're doing currently in your career, and feel free to, mention your affiliation with URI.
Sure thing. Yeah. So hi, everybody. My name is Bryce Monahan. I graduated from URI in 2011. And since then, I've been working for General Dynamics Electric Boat down in New London, Connecticut, actually. I, right out of college, started working at Electric Boat. I've gotten to work on a couple different major classes of submarines. Mainly, I've been working on the Columbia class, which is going to replace the Ohio class of submarines that we're currently using. But I also did get to work a little bit on the Virginia class, which is the ones that are currently being built and serve a different purpose. They're more of a fast attack as opposed to a SSBN that the Columbia class is. But so I've gotten to work on some pretty cool stuff throughout my career. Pretty much everything related to mechanical systems within the boat I've been able to work on. And that basically is classified as anything that moves and isn't electronics. So we do have a very wide range of things that we get to work on underneath the sphere of influence for mechanical at Electric Boat. I've gotten to work on a bunch of different programmatic type roles as well, just kind of away from the technical side of things, where we're working on more of design for affordability, just trying to design things to be, cost less to make and overall drive down the cost of creating submarines for the Navy, which is very high, if you could imagine. Submarines are very, very expensive. So anywhere that we can save money, we try to. There's also a lot of quality controls and new sort of processes that we've done because we've recently transitioned to a new tool in designing submarines. We used to use an older version of CAD called CATIA. Now we're using NX and Team Center, which is much more 21st century than CATIA is. So that's nice. And it's been great. We're a huge company. We do exclusive work for the Navy. We do have some very, very, very small international projects where we're essentially subcontracted through the Navy to other what do we call them? Allies. Yeah, sorry. I don't have many involvement in that, but I do know that we have it. And it's a pretty cool program if you do end up getting involved with that. We're hiring like crazy. The defense industry, specifically around submarines, is really taken off. We're hiring a lot of people in the last 3 to 4 years, and we don't have any real signs of slowing down. I've been here at Electric Boat for just about 10 years now. I did transition into a supervisory role the last couple of years. And it was a little bit of adjustment, but it's a lot of fun. I do enjoy this type of work now. And if anybody's kind of curious as to that goes, it is very different from the technical side, but it's still rewarding and fun. But with that, I guess that's kind of the gist for me. So I'll hand it back to Tammy.
Great. Thanks, Bryce. It's always good to have you back, even virtually, to campus. Hopefully soon we'll have you back live.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to campus.
I know, I know. So my first question for the two of you, and I just want to say to our student audience, we are still trying to get Susan Borden from Rite Solutions into the panel. So hopefully she'll be able to join us for a portion of this. But let me go back to Dorothy. And I know, Dorothy, you went into a lot of what your career has been like up to this point in time, but can you describe for our students what a day in the life of an engineer would be like at Ball Aerospace?
Yeah, great question. So for me, unfortunately, I'm in meetings all day. I'm in, so in this COVID environment, I go in 2 days a week because those 2 days I'm in classified meetings. So I'm in classified space, secured space, known as a SCIF. And so those 2 days I'll be in meetings, and the other 3 days I'll be virtual, which I love. But my life in my day fluctuates from discussing a technical issue on maybe an antenna or a spacecraft, all the way to like when I get off of this, I'm in 2 hours of interviews, recruiting people. I feel like I want to talk to Bryce because he moved from CATIA to the Siemens Team Center, and we're going into CATIA and going with the Dassault product. And and it's interesting because we just down selected away from Siemens into Dassault. So it's constantly, I do a lot with engineering tools. So being the director of engineering operations, I do a lot of whatever the VP of engineering doesn't really want to do. So I am like his enterprise business tool person. I'm the person that puts together all of the cost engineering when it seems like a lot of engineers, they really, really like the technical side. I like the cost side. So aligning technical costs with schedule. I can really relate to what Bryce is saying, that everything, they're looking at cost caps and they're looking at how can you be more affordable? How can you streamline? And it's really difficult when you're also hiring. Like last year we hired over 500, and then, with attrition, you have a net of 300, and bringing the different people in and getting them trained on our tools. I do a lot with training. I do a lot with human resources. I do a lot, like I said, with the cost engineering, the soft skills within the engineering department. So we have the really, really PhD technical folks and the scientists that are driving the requirements. I help with how do you execute the program or project within cost, schedule, and technical? How do you make sure that the new business that we are going after, that we are putting in really good basis of estimates, we're putting in really good cost estimates, that we're aligned with our vendors and suppliers. So I'm in a lot of meetings. I work a lot with supply chain. I work a lot with the manufacturing and test. At NASA, it was more, we had the contractors that did all the fun work. Now I'm one of the contractors, and I can go walking through the plant. I can go through a manufacturing plant. I can see the huge environmental test chambers, the vibe tables. So I do anything that is kind of bringing the team together. And we have over, 150 projects going at any one time within the different disciplines. Our organization, the main, when you think of mechanical, electrical, software, structures, that organization is 1,200 people. And then we have a whole organization that's made up of just spacecraft people, of mission control, because we do a lot of the missions and we control the spacecraft when it's in flight. We have a payloads group, which is when we're flying on these different spacecraft, the different payloads. It could be optical, or it could be cryo, or it could be detectors. We have that group. So it's like integrating, and then you have the big systems group. That's like 500-600 people. So the engineering used to include all the manufacturing, but our manufacturing has gone from like 400 people to 800 people. So we broke out manufacturing from the design engineering group. And I would just say I'm in a lot of meetings. The best part of my work is when I can go walking through the plant. And with the COVID environment, they actually want us to stay away because if someone gets sick, it takes down everyone that's around them. And so some of our schedules have slipped quite a bit because one person may get, test positive, but then the 6 or 8 people that have been exposed to them, they have to stay out for 2 weeks. So I don't get to walk the plant as much. Our company has 3 locations. The main one I'm in is Boulder, but then the other part of Colorado in Westminster and Broomfield are two other campuses. And it's like Bryce said, the DoD and the intelligence is just grown really, really, really fast. I believe with the new administration that the NASA NOAA side is going to grow fast also. With that, is that okay, Tammy?
That was beautiful, Dorothy. And actually, I love the fact that you talked a little bit about how COVID has affected both aerospace and the workplace and the culture there. And I wonder if Bryce could talk a little bit about what life is like as an engineer in your field at General Dynamics Electric Boat, but also if you could tie in a little bit about how the pandemic has affected the work culture and the environment at General Dynamics Electric Boat.
Sure. So depending on where you end up in engineering would really kind of dictate what your day is going to look like. But just for the purposes of making it nice and simple, for example, if you were to come work for me, your first couple days, or actually your first couple weeks, bordering on a month or so, would really just be following around some of the other engineers that are more senior in the group and essentially learning how we do things. So we're very aware that nobody had a How EB Works course, regardless of where they went to school. And there's also a How Submarines Works course that nobody took that in school. So there's a lot of learning on the fly. There's a lot of on-the-job training that we do. We have a lot of special emphasis programs that people need to get trained up on when they come into work here, specifically related to submarines themselves. And then as you end up working here for longer, you kind of gain more and more responsibilities from, learning all the different systems that you're being exposed to. And then you're going to probably become the lead of one. So then you'd actually be the person in charge for whenever we have questions, you'd be the person that we'd go talk to. And a lot of working at Electric Boat is really just trying to figure out who are the right people you need to talk to understand how everything works together. The submarines, and I'm sure Dorothy's can probably attest to this. NASA's probably the same way. You're never doing something by yourself. Every little piece of the submarine interacts with some other piece of the submarine, and they all need to work together, or else very bad things could happen. So there's always interaction between us and other disciplines. Nothing good ever happens in a vacuum. We're constantly interfacing with other folks. It used to be through actual in-person meetings. Now it is through a lot of telecons. We specifically aren't allowed to use Zoom because of the video and recording technologies, so we use a different program, but it's essentially the same thing, just without the video. I have been, let me back up a little bit. So when the pandemic first started around March, April last year, EB was actually very quick to adjust to this. They knew right off the bat that they were not going to be, or they were going to be considered one of these like essential businesses that needed to keep running in order to support DoD contracts and whatnot, to make sure that we can stay defending freedom and all those good things. So we actually very quickly were able to split almost the entire engineering workforce into first and second shifts. So we actually had about half of the department went on second shift for about 2 months while the rest of the IT infrastructure was being updated to allow work from home capabilities. Now we've got more than, I think it's closer to 60 or 70% of our engineering and design workforce is actually remote. Most people are not going into the office anymore. but there are times like I try to go into the office at least twice a week. A lot of the new people, we are asking them to go into the office for at least the first month or so, just so we can keep tabs on them, make sure they're taking their training and that they're making sure that they're contacting all the right people and actually growing and, you know, fitting into the EB workforce as we intended. The other areas of the business are a little different. The shipyard has gone through some pretty drastic changes just to make sure everybody is safe during the pandemic. Obviously, masks are required everywhere. There's a lot more, what's it called, like HVAC systems going on and providing temporary airflow to different aspects of the submarines that are under construction, so you don't have any stagnant air in anywhere. So there's a lot going on. But so if you didn't end up coming to work for me, so I work on the engineering side of the submarines that we're still developing. We are starting very early construction, but we're not like building the submarines and they're going to go off to sea in the next couple of years. It's still going to be a while before Columbia is actually first shipped off. But if you were to go, say, work on one of the departments that supports Virginia, you'd actually get to do a lot more hands-on type work where you could actually go down to the shipyard and potentially see what's being worked on. Whereas with the Columbia class that I'm working on now, it's all still on a computer. There's very few pieces that are actually, except for like the long lead castings and forgings that take forever to make. Those are the only ones that are currently under contract and you can actually go physically see them. Everything else is still, you know, in the computer essentially. So if you're actually working in the shipyard, you know, you get a little dirtier, you know, you gotta wear steel toe boots and stuff, where if you're working in the office like I am, well, like I used to, this is my basement right now. But in the, back in the office, I mean, it's like a nice air conditioned office. So that's kind of nice. But what if you're working at the shipyard? I mean, you got to have all your personal protective equipment. You got to make sure you're following all the rules. You have to get trained up on all the different signals and the different color codings for different panels and warning indications and stuff like that. So it's a pretty different environment, but we do end up essentially working on the same thing. So we have a pretty thorough rotation program here at EB. If you do end up coming to work here and you decide, hey, I don't really like working over in the office, I want to try working in the shipyard, you can essentially make those transitions. They're not, you know, it's not just like a free available, you can go do whenever. You do have to apply and get chosen to do it, but it's essentially very similar to like changing a major at college. We have rotation programs for that, and sometimes you can either stay over and wherever you rotate to, or you can come back, and at that point you've gained all this knowledge of, you know, the other areas that you've worked on, and now you can be more beneficial to your home department. So there's a lot of different things you can end up doing here. Handoff.
Grace, thank you so much for that. And that kind of was a segue into my next question in terms of, you had mentioned that at General Dynamics Electric Boat that there's a lot of opportunity to rotate through different departments. It's easy to transition, you know, from position to position. But I think one question that I know comes up a lot with students is, well, what do they look for when they're looking at General Dynamics Electric Boat or Ball Aerospace? Like, how do they get their foot in the door? What are some of the opportunities that are available to them that are entry level? So I think a lot of students, when they're sort of navigating websites like the Ball Aerospace website or the General Dynamics Electric Boat website, they get a little confused as to what they should be looking for, and some of the, perhaps maybe it's keywords or job titles that they should be looking for entry level. So maybe I can have Dorothy start with some advice in that respect.
Sure. And I know Tammy, she got to meet with Heidi, who's one of our recruiters at Ball Aerospace. So what I would say is Ball Aerospace, we've already picked our intern class, but we usually have between 81 and 85 interns. And last year, even though we were in the COVID environment, we still had 81 interns. Some were virtual. About 10 came in to the office, but not every day. And in the COVID environment last year, we hired 1,000 people. So we really believe in our intern program, and 90% of our interns we hire if it's a good fit. So one of the things that I would say, if you're a fresh out and you're looking for a position, it's an associate engineer. at Ball Aerospace, and they're in all of the different disciplines, but look for whatever position is an associate position. But also, if you're a sophomore or junior, apply for our internships, because pretty much if you do an internship, it's pretty much a shoo-in. The intern program is very well organized, and it's one of, we've heard so many positive results from our intern program. We have mentors, and we have a very structured, you get assigned to different, you get to build a spacecraft, we get to launch it. Of course, in the COVID environment last year, we didn't get to launch on a balloon or on a small rocket, but when we get back, we're hoping that this summer we'll be able to do it. You work in teams. It's just like Bryce said, everything that we do is part of a team. It's all about we, it's not about I. Our culture is very much of an inclusive culture. We have this saying, we have an ICA, which is Inspire, Connect, Achieve. And whenever we're hiring people, those are the three things that we measure during an interview: is inspire, connect, achieve. How have you worked on a team? How have you gone and done extracurricular activities? Have you gone and shared all of your expertise and your knowledge with other people so that they feel part of the whole group and part of the team? And we believe that all of our success is because the team respects each other. They ask questions that might sound a little harsh, but it's all about the hardware, or it's about the engineering, or it's about the development. It is not about the individual. It's the individual, regardless what school you went to, what year you are in college, or whether you're a senior person, you all have something that you can bring to the table. And all of what you bring to the table, that diversity and inclusion, is really part of our company's traits. It's part of our character. And so I would say that if you're applying and you haven't done an internship, look for the associate engineering positions, and there's a lot of them in all the different disciplines. And if you're younger and you're still in college, like a sophomore or junior, please apply for the internships. I would say though, when you're interning, they're going to look for how do you inspire, achieve, how do you inspire, connect, and achieve with the different people that you have been working with at the university. Back to you.
Dorothy, thanks so much. And I love the way our panelists are sort of segueing into some of the additional questions that I have, but I'm going to ask Bryce to answer the same type of question. So, students are looking for and seeking entry-level opportunities at General Dynamics Electric Boat. What can they look for? What sort of job titles should they be searching for? And also, if you could talk about what General Dynamics Electric Boat is doing in terms of the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece, that would be wonderful too, Bryce.
Sure thing. So as far as how to apply for jobs at Electric Boat, you have to go to gdeb.com. It's all through there's a link at the bottom for careers, and you have to create a profile on there, and all the applications are through that website. For any entry-level jobs, look for anything that says Engineer 1. The way it works at EB is you start off as an E1 or Engineer 1, and then you become, well, assuming you stick around and earn it, you become an E2, and then there's senior and specialist with principals, and it goes up from there. And then you can obviously jump ship and go to the management route too, but that's not entry level, that's down the road. So that would be the best place to look, or look for anything that has an Engineer 1 on it. As a mechanical engineer, you're really qualify for a lot of different positions here at EB. You could, obviously anything that says Mechanical Engineer 1, you fit. You could also apply for most Structural Engineer 1 positions. A lot of the civil and mechanical classes that you took at EB or at URI will carry over and work for structural engineering here at Electric Boat. There's also certain systems engineering positions you could apply for. There's a couple different ways to view systems engineering, right? There's EB's way of systems, where you look at a system and you are the engineer for the system. And then there's like the academic view of a systems engineer that kind of sits kind of behind everything and is able to see a more global picture and make sure that there's, you know, configuration management's happening the right way and all these other more systems engineering type practices actually happen. So if you find a systems engineer one that is more of the, well, actually either flavor of systems engineer one, you as a mechanical engineer would fit. So any engineer one position, essentially any of them except for electrical or computer related positions, you should qualify for. So I encourage you to look for those. And then I think this probably applies for most jobs, but if you're able to pull up the job rec and see what the job position is looking for, and then if you could somehow find a way to tailor some of that on your resume, that always helps. It just has a nice way of sticking out. But it's all through General Dynamics online application. There's no, it's, you know, you can't get it through monster.com or ZipRecruiter or anything like that. It's all through GDEV. As far as internships, so our internship window for this summer has closed. The way they do those is they're usually open around the Halloween, beginning of November timeframe, and they usually close around the beginning of December. And that's because in order to be an intern, you have to have already passed some sort of preliminary security background check to work that summer. This year we did have a much less internship spots than usual because of the COVID pandemic. But it's not like if you don't have an internship, you're not going to get hired. I didn't have an internship at EB, and obviously I made it. I worked out here. I had an internship at a very small company up in Warren, Rhode Island that had absolutely nothing to do with what I ended up doing, what I ended up working on here at Electric Boat. So it's really more of a, you need to just be able to have somebody outside of, you know, your RA or your high school coach saying that you're willing to, you know, put in the extra time. You have the positive attitude of being able to work with everybody and, you know, communicate well. Communication's key. I cannot emphasize that enough. Being able to clearly communicate what you're trying to get across, what you need, how what you're going to be doing is going to interact with everybody else is the most important thing. Having a clear understanding makes that first step is so important for everything else after that. And obviously, if you're not taking the first step the right way, you're falling already. So you got to really make sure that you're able to communicate well. So then as far as diversity and inclusion, we actually do have, there's different groups and programs within EB. Like we have our Black Engineering Council, we've got our Women in Defense. There's another one. I can't think of the acronym off the top of my head, but I know a couple of my employees that work for me are in that one, and I feel bad that I can't think of the name right now. It'll come to me later. But we also have several management positions that are specifically related to promoting diversity, equality, and inclusion. So there's a lot of push more on, it doesn't really show up on my side yet. Like I don't have too much involvement with those initiatives, but I know that they are happening and they're going on more on the HR side of things. So that's really all. I don't really know too much about them, but they are absolutely involved and going on here at Electric Boat.
Great answers. Thanks for all that information. And we're probably rounding out for maybe one more question from our panelists, and then we'll open it up for students to start to ask questions. So out of my list of questions that I'm really interested in hearing, there's a lot, but we are running out of time, believe it or not. So let's start with Dorothy, and maybe you can tell the students that are here what was significant about your education at URI that supported your career.
There wasn't just one thing. I think there was a lot. So I was also vice president of Alpha Xi Delta. So I was in a sorority and I lived on sorority fraternity row. My parents were both college professors at URI. So the only way I could get away from living at home was to join a sorority. And what was so great was the diversity of the different, you know, all the different ladies that I lived with were either in nursing or pharmacy. A few of us were in engineering or in education. and getting to know all of the different people and the different aspects of the university. I mean, if when I went, you know, I was always up in Bliss Hall and in that quadrant of the university. And if I had lived at home, I would have really not experienced college, and I would not have been able to build the relationships that I did with all of my girlfriends and with all of the different, you know, there were not very many females when I graduated. I graduated in 1981. So for me to have my girl time was with the sorority. And then during engineering, it was with all the guys. And the guys loved it because they got to meet a lot of my girlfriends, and a lot of them are still married. But also I really like to bring people together, and I really like to learn from each other, and I always want to learn. So I would say at the university, I received a great engineering education, you know, working and going to classes way up in that corner of the campus. But then I got to meet so many other people that were from other parts of New England, not just from Rhode Island, that are still some of my best friends. And we all work together to help each other with the hard problems. You know, when you're a freshman and sophomore and you're taking all the early classes and you're taking differential equations and you're taking all the chemistry, we could work together to help each other learn the different equations and things like that. But it was still when they were starting to do the school of nursing and pharmacy. And so I just have the best memories of URI, not just from the education, but the social. And I'm a social person. And I think that when I'm working on teams with different engineers, a lot of engineers are introverts and they are really book smart. And I try to bring those people out because they really know a lot about their topic and their subject. But it's just like Bryce said, if you can't communicate what you're trying to develop, and what I try to do is bring out and ask those questions so I can understand their new technology and understand what they're trying to develop, because they're so smart, but they may not communicate as well. And I think that is something that at the university, talking to the different people, that helped me become a better engineer, was being able to work with all types of people. At NASA, I worked with a lot of PhD scientists, and they have their own culture. And then at Ball Aerospace, I work with a lot of PhD engineer and scientists, and they have their own culture. But bringing that whole thought process and the different ways of operating, bringing that all together is what I enjoy. And I really learned that at URI from all of the different cultures and groups of people that were there. So that's my answer. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Bryce, how about you? Why don't you talk about what was significant about your education at URI that supported your current career?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously the classwork and the education that we got, going to class and getting a degree was obviously very helpful. URI is a very good school. They have very good accreditations, and they have a good reputation for all the people that come from URI to EB. I think last year was the first year since I've been involved with any of the metrics where EB hired more people from URI than UConn last year, which was huge. Like that had never happened since I've been working at EB. So I thought that was kind of cool. But as far as things that have really, really helped me that I got from URI, aside from the coursework, obviously that's very important. I was in the marching band at URI. I was actually cymbals on the drum line, and I basically started doing that just because I wanted to find a way to make friends that was extracurricular, and it was honestly an excuse to get on campus a week earlier, because you got to show up for band camp. And so that actually really helped. I did not know a whole lot about marching band when I joined up. It was more of just that seems like fun, and I can clap, I can play cymbals, how hard could it be, right? And but by the time I graduated as a senior, I was actually the section leader for the drum line, and we got to do a lot more cool stuff. By the time I graduated, we were playing at the pep rallies, we were playing at basketball games. We even played at a couple of hockey games that year because the hockey team was incredible, both the men's and women's teams. My senior year, the club hockey teams were really good. And like that really forced me to get out of my comfort zone. I kind of like what Dorothy was getting at. I'm a little bit more of the social side of engineering. A lot of engineers, a lot of my friends in engineering were not the most social butterflies. They weren't the most outgoing, that you kind of had to poke and prod them. Whereas I've always been more of a, I don't know, a talking type person, but getting into the drum line was a really interesting way for me to kind of really get out of my comfort zone. Like I went from, I'm a pretty smart person. When I was in high school, I was one of the top people in my class. So like I always kind of knew what was going on. And now I was in a situation where I did not. I was not the smartest person in the room. And a lot of times I was the dumb guy that you had to go kind of like talk up to go get him to do the right thing, so he's not in the wrong spot on the formation or whatever the case may be. So that really helped. It was a lot of communication growth. The people I met were incredible. Actually, I met my wife she was on the color guard. We're living in the same house. We have a daughter now, and that worked out great. But then other things that really helped from URI was don't get, or I worked while I was at school too. I worked in, oh my God, what's the dining hall? Hope. I worked in the Hope Dining Hall my freshman and sophomore year washing dishes. It sucked, but it was a great way to essentially show, hey, this kid's willing to work. This kid will put in the extra effort. And I did get to actually like meet some pretty cool people that worked in the dishwashing in the background too. Like it was just kind of fun. And then when I was a junior and a senior and living off campus, I was actually a tour guide too. So that really helped. I mean, that was another way of really pushing me outside of my comfort zone. Now I was giving presentations like once or twice a week while marching around backwards around campus. And that was actually a lot of fun. I mean, I got to learn a lot about URI. I got a lot of the tour guides were in the Greek system, so I got to meet a bunch of people in a side of EB or a side of URI that I had never really been a part of. So that was really cool. I mean, the main thing is I think it's a Mark Twain quote. So don't be upset if I butcher this, but it's never let your schooling interfere with your education, I think is the quote. And the idea being like, hey, learning the book stuff is very important. Obviously, you're not going to be able to design submarines or parts for NASA or anything really if you don't know how to actually do it. If you can't do the math that proves what you're trying to do is right, then what's the point, right? But all of the other stuff that goes into developing your communication skills, your ability to look at somebody and understand, like, all right, they're not sure, they're not confident in what they're saying. Like, we need to make sure that we ask some more questions over there to make sure that guy really, like, we really understand what they're saying, because I don't know if he even understands what he's saying, type deal. You have to be able to develop those skills, and that's really not something you get in the classroom. So I thought URI did an incredible job training me for those sort of non-academic skills. So that's kind of my thanks to URI there. They did a great job.
That's great, Bryce. We actually had a student comment that he's a drum major. So made a connection there with one of the students in attendance.
Oh, yeah,
but yeah. Yeah, fantastic. And I think the key is that for our students that are on the call to take advantage of these opportunities to enhance not just your technical skills, but importantly your soft skills, because that is going to be a tremendous skill set that you'll lean on heavily when you start your career. So thank you for all of those comments, Bryce. And we actually have a few minutes left, and I really want to encourage students to share their voice and share their questions with our panelists by adding some questions into the chat. So really, truly, students that are on this call, please take advantage of these two wonderful alumni that are here and ask some questions. And we have Holly that's going to actually monitor some of the questions for us. And so we have a question that just did come in.
So yeah, can you see it, Tammy, or do you need me to read those out?
Actually, I can take it, Holly. So the first question is, which locations are active, or most active hiring at all aerospace or EB in general, but as a computer science major specifically for software engineering. So Dorothy, do you have any information to share with the student on hiring for software engineers?
Yeah, so we do a lot of hiring of software engineers. In fact, that's one of the areas that we always have the most difficult place to hire. We for our mission control, our mission ops, that's usually a software engineer. And we're looking, a lot of what we do is actually done on the East Coast. And so we're looking at different locations. Also, our software engineering, because we build all our own boards and boxes that go into our spacecraft and our instruments and our different payloads, we have a whole software development side. And then a part of our business is data analytics. We do a lot in doing analysis of software products. And so that's where we have software, either computer science or software engineers. But I'd say that within the company, between our mission control and our software, I know the software group is about 130 people. I would say our mission control folks, that's like 150. So at least we have at least between 250, 300 software engineers.
Great. How about Bryce? Any
So
idea?
yeah, so for software engineering, we hire probably, I couldn't tell you the numbers, but we are absolutely hiring software engineers. The most likely place that they would end up would either be in New London, where I work, working on software for the Columbia class. And then there's also a small campus that we have in Newport, actually, Newport, Rhode Island, that works on a lot of simulators and trainers. And they do a lot of hiring for software as well. So mainly, I think mainly the hiring for software engineering would end up in New London, but there's a chance you can end up in Newport too, depending on which group ends up needing it.
Great. Fantastic. And Bryce, all of those opportunities these students can find on gdeb.careers or gdeb/careers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gdb.com/careers. And you gotta make like your own little profile and stuff, and you can upload a resume and all that jazz.
Great. So just curious, with our students out there, are there any other questions from the students? Great. So we have another one that just came in. Is it important for an applicant to be EIT coming out of school, or for the applicant to plan on pursuing EIT and or PE license in the future? So Bryce, since you're still unmiked, do you have any comments on that?
So there's nothing that would require you to go get your PE or do an EIT train. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but there's nothing stopping you from going to pursue those things, but it also wouldn't hold you back if you do not have those for any entry-level position at Electric Boat.
Great. Dorothy, any perspective on that?
I was looking on my website to send you the link for if people wanted to apply for positions at Ball, but I didn't find it. But yeah, at Ball it's not required. I only have my EIT. I do not have my PE. Yeah, I don't know who signs the drawings. It's not like, if you know, when I first was at URI, I worked for Donatelli Construction, and you know, we had different PEs that had to sign the drawings, and my son has to sign drawings. But at Ball Aerospace and even at NASA, none of us sign drawings. So I'm not real sure.
Okay. No
But
worries.
I don't think it's a requirement. I know when I mentor a lot of young ladies, and I know a lot of them do not have it. They are getting masters. One thing that's really nice with Ball Aerospace, or all of Ball, is once you're working for the company, they pay for if you want to further your education. So I mentor like 20 different young ladies from these different fellowships, and all of them are getting their master's degree at CU, which is in Boulder. And during the COVID environment, they said, they've made it so they don't have to go to class. I mean, they do it all virtually, and so they're almost all done with their master's degree. And they went, like, they are undergrad. Like, one of them was systems, and she went and got her master's in like engineering management. Another one was mechanical, and she got her master's in systems. And so that's another kind of perk with Ball Aerospace, is getting your education, your further education paid for.
And truly a huge benefit that I think many of our engineering students would love to consider as part of their, next step in their career is working for an employer that's going to support their education moving forward. So just, great information. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm not sure if any of the students on the call would like to add one more question for our panelists.
I just wanted to mention too that EB does have like programs to help you further your education, but they do not fully pay for it the way it sounds like Ball does. There's assistance, but it's not fully covered. I actually got my, I did something similar to the person Dorothy mentioned there. I got my master's in systems engineering from WPI after getting my mechanical engineering degree from URI.
Yeah, and there are plenty of employers that will offer some sort of assistance in helping students with furthering their education. So it's pretty common a benefit, and it does depend on which employers offer what. So, but any help is good help. That's my feeling. So just one last pitch to our students out there. Are there any other questions? We have a couple of minutes left. Got one question that came in, and it says, do you prefer to hire people with a master's degree? So is the master's degree a preference? And I don't know, Bryce, do you want to take that one? Is there a preference with the master's degree?
I don't think I would say there's a preference or not. It definitely doesn't hurt. But I don't think there's been a time where I've been involved with hiring for a position where we looked at a handful of people and said, well, these 4 have a master's degree, so we're not even going to bother looking at everybody else. We we kind of look at each resume individually and go from there.
Okay, great. Dorothy, how about Ball? Do they have a preference for?
So the different levels, so like when Bryce was saying you could be an E1, an E2, then senior engineer. If you have a master's degree, you don't have to apply as an associate. And a lot of the different, when they post the different positions, they'll say, this many years experience or an equivalent with a master's degree. And then you can apply for a higher level engineering position.
Great. Very, very useful. And I do love these questions that are coming in from the students because I do hear these a lot. So I'm glad that you're here to answer them. Well, what I want to say is, first and foremost, thank you so much for being here today. Dorothy Rasco and Bryce Monahan. We apologize for not being able to get Susan Borden in, but we have a couple of little technical glitches with her joining the discussion. This discussion was very well rounded and from my standpoint, incredibly appreciated. We want to say to the students that are on the call, please continue to check out this week's opportunities. We have something going on every day this week. This evening, we have our career conversations going on, and I believe that General Dynamics Electric Boat will be there. So please take advantage of this one-to-one time with, I think Bryce will be there, but some of his colleagues as well. But throughout the week, consider joining us for any one of these events. We're going to continue the Lunch and Learn panels, theme-based throughout the week. So please take advantage of this. So there's such great information to be shared across the week. So once again, I just want to say an incredibly huge thank you to our panelists. We could not do this week and share this information with our students without your dedication. Also, a special thanks to the Career Center staff for supporting the panel, as well as supporting all of this week's events. And to the students that are with us today on this panel, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. We really appreciate your being here and taking advantage of this time with our notable alumni. Continue to check Handshake and your emails for updates on Engineering Tech Career Week. And once again, thank you so much, all of you, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.